Alright guys, welcome back for another video on HAIKYU Fly High, and today we're going to get better technical and talk about what's going to be the best optimal summoning strategy for SP banners. Now the reason why I say SP banners specifically is because today's video is going to be a lot focused on the cumulative recruit reward that we'll be getting when you actually do certain number of summons in a single banner, and the reward for SP banners and also UR banners are different. Noticeably, it's after the 200 mark. On the SP banner, we are actually going to get loads of milk vouchers back. Whereas for the UR one, it's just kind of a repeat of the same rewards up to the first 200 summons. So that's kind of why there's going to be a difference. And that also makes a very, very interesting strategy in terms of the SP banners, depending on how many dupes or how many skill resonance you want to get certain characters up to. And a lot of the SP characters do really need their skill resonance or would benefit greatly from their skill resonance. And that's what makes the milk vouchers very, very attractive here. Okay. Now, just to clarify, I wasn't actually the one who came up with the strat or the serigraph. So all credits to the authors, which are Zhao, Deepsea, Fire, Words, and possibly even more people. So there was a discussion on my Discord community group. I don't know exactly how the whole discussion went, but basically huge shout out to everyone who helped out and also came up with this brilliant strategy. Now, before actually talking about how the strategy works, I just want to highlight the fact that this strategy is more for those people who would actually be wanting to get a skill resonance onto their characters. And in fact, I would probably say you want to get skill resonance on at least 4 or more of your SP characters. Okay, that's only going to be the time where this strategy is going to be beneficial. And the reason for this is this strategy very much focused on trying to get those extra milk vouchers, which can then be turned into a character dupe. So if you're not actually planning to get multiple characters, and when I say multiple, the reason is obviously you're not going to collect enough milk vouchers in just 1 or 2 banners. You will have to do this over multiple banners, and what that basically means is that you need to get multiple characters to higher skill resonance. Okay, so that's kind of like the prerequisite thing you have to decide first. But assuming that is the approach you want to go, you do want to get multiple characters or to higher skill resonances, then you will realize is that a lot of the milk voucher you get at the higher end of this milestone is going to look very tempting. Now, how do we actually put a monetary value onto those is another question, and that's basically what this table I have here is trying to show. So for example, if we just do 10 summons, what's going to happen is that each summon costs 150, so basically we would have used 1,500 diamonds, and in return what we would have gotten is just 2 SP ticket, and each SP ticket was 150. So what that basically means is that the reward we're going to get is going to be equivalent to 300, and basically 300 over this 1,500 basically means we got a return of 20%, which is quite nice. Okay. However, if we actually extend this to even further out, we would then realize actually this 20% is actually quite low compared to some of the other returns we'll be getting at the higher milestone. So for example, if we do it at 20 summons, what we're going to get is we're going to get the original 2 SP ticket. However, we're also going to get 5 memory ticket, and each memory ticket in this game is worth 100 gems. So that basically brings us to 800 gems reward. We have spent 3,000 diamonds beforehand, and that basically gives us a return of 27%. So that's already higher than the 10 summons. But what really makes this return rate jumps or spikes is basically once you get to this 200 points where you actually get a whole free copy of the character. Now you may be wondering, how do we then assign a value for a copy or a milk voucher to this game, because obviously you can't just straight up buy them with diamond. So what we're going to do here is we're going to assume on average it takes 120 pulls for you to actually summon for a character. So what that basically means is that this character that we'll be getting at 200 because it's a free dupe, that's basically going to worth 120 SP ticket. And likewise, for example, our 160, we're going to get 5 milk vouchers. Now in this game, you need 20 milk vouchers to essentially exchange for a dupe. So 5 milk vouchers are going to be equivalent to a quarter of a dupe, and that's basically why it's going to be a quarter of that 120 tickets, which is only going to be 30 tickets. And once we have converted them to tickets, we can then use the usual conversion of each ticket. It's going to be equivalent to 150 diamonds, and then we can convert everything into a diamond value here as well. Okay, and once we do all of that, we can then divide it by all of the diamond that has actually been used in order to summon up to that milestone, and here it's going to be essentially the return we'll be getting depending on how many times you have summoned. Now there are a few things to notice. First of all, one thing is that obviously the rate is going to jump massively as soon as you hit 200, and 200 is always going to be the sweet spot, right? If we only want want to get the maximum amount of return, you may be tempted to say, let's only do 200 summons every single time. Obviously, that's not going to be quite effective in real life, which I'll talk about in a bit. But basically, what the first thing to take away here is that if you actually can go to 200 or more in a single summon, the return is going to be a lot more valuable than if you only hit less than 200. The other noticeable thing to also realize is that the return at 160 is actually the highest out of all of the return under 200, which basically means that rather than building your pity across, let's say, multiple banners, in which case you're always going to get a return of, at most 27%, it's actually going to be more beneficial to go in one go to 160 on that banner rather than building the pity. Because if you just go up to 160, you're going to get a return of 29%, and that's going to be more than however many banners you have built up pity beforehand, because no matter how you build it, the maximum you can hit is only going to be 27%. Okay, so that's another key takeaway here. Now, back onto the reason why I say, even though 200 is a sweet spot, but that's not always practical in real life, it's because in this game, when we actually have characters, the character have skill resonance. And basically, you either have skill resonance 1, which is just one copy, or you have skill resonance 2, the next stage, which is actually going to be 3 copies in total. And out of 200 summons, what's going to happen is that, yes, you can get a free copy here. However, it's going to be ridiculously lucky for you to get 2 other copies, the other 2 copies out of just 200 summons, because that requires an average of getting a character in just 100 pulls, which is going to be incredibly lucky if you're actually able to achieve that. So a lot of time you actually have to go more than 200. And now the question is, if you do have to go for more than 200, what's going to be the best way? Do you just want to go to more than 200 straight away, or do you actually want to split your pools into some of the banners beforehand to actually build out the pity? And if we once again take this mathematical example here, so for example, let's say we want to do 280 summons, because 280 summons is exactly twice the pity amount, right? The pity in this game is 140 pools, so in 280 you're guaranteed to get 2 copies, then plus the free dupe you'll get at 200. This can actually guarantee skill resonance too, right? So let's take 280 as a good reference point. If I just go 280 in a single summon, then what's going to happen is that I will get a return of 70%. However, if I spread it out to 200, which is obviously the highest sweet spot, plus another 80, what we are actually going to get is basically the reward we'll be getting. Let me just do the math with you guys now. The reward we'll be getting will be this one that we'll be getting from 200 plus this one that we'll be getting from 80, and then we'll be divided by however many diamonds we'll have to spend in order to do 280 summons. And then what's going to happen is that you realize the return is actually only going to be around 66%, which is actually less than just going straight up to 280 in a single banner. And that basically shows that because the SP banners, unlike the UR banners, actually offer those milk vouchers once you hit the 200 marks, it's actually going to be a bit more beneficial for you to go all the way higher to get those milk vouchers, because essentially they will provide better value in return once you actually convert them back onto diamonds. Last thing I'll show you guys is some example pools the guys have came up with just to illustrate how you may actually want to execute this. Now take all of the numbers here as an indicative number, because depending on how your summons actually went, for example, if you meant to get a character very early versus very late into the pity, then you would probably need to adjust this, because all of the examples here, they are assuming you are starting off from, I think, like a 0 pity or very low pity kind of thing. So depending on how your summons actually went, you probably need to make some minor adjustment yourself. But just for illustration purposes, so for example, if you actually want to summon for let's say 2 characters that you want to summon for, the first character you only want to go for 1 dupe, whereas the second character you actually need 3 dupes to go for skill resonance 2. Then the most optimal strategy here will be to do 160 summons on the first character first, and then to do 200 summons on the second one. Whereas if it's the other way around, the first character that's going to come first is actually the one you want to go to skill resonance 2, and then followed by a character which is at skill resonance 1. Then what you should be doing instead is actually go for 280 and then another 80 summons. Now if it's actually a back-to-back 2 characters which you only want 1 dupe, then what you should be doing here is be 160 and then another 80 summons. Whereas if it's actually 2 characters back-to-back which are both skill resonance 2, then the most optimal strategy will be 280 plus 200. And basically by doing this way, it may sound like you are actually spending a few more summons than actually needed, because for example you could on average actually get a character at just 120, but you're doing a few more summons. But basically, those actually allow you to get some milk voucher, so that in the future, if you, let's say, actually want to get a character to skill resonance 2, then you don't actually need to go all the way to 200 anymore, because you may have already built up enough milk vouchers to go and basically just redeem for an extra dupe, and basically, for example, you can just stop at 200 rather than needing to go to 280. Or this could also be very useful, let's say, if you actually want to get someone to skill resonance 4, then obviously all of those additional milk vouchers that you have collected would add up, and that basically allows you to basically eventually go to 360 and get all of the milk voucher available, and then for whatever gap you are still missing from skill resonance 4, then you can just use all of the other milk vouchers you have built up before previously. Okay, so that's basically some of the examples of how you would actually execute this in real life. Now, once again, I just want to highlight this strategy. It's just going to be for those people who actually want to focus on skill resonance onto character, and I would say minimum at least 3 or 4 characters that you actually want to go for higher skill resonances. If you just want to get a single copy of each character, where there's only like 1 or 2 characters you're considering duping up, then I'll probably still say the original strategy of just summoning 10 or 50 times to get those extra SP ticket is still going to be more valuable, because essentially the additional milk vouchers, whilst they are equivalent to higher diamonds, they will mean nothing if you don't actually plan to dupe them up. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind. And also, this strategy does take a long time to execute. Okay, so unlike the SP ticket where you see a return immediately, for this kind of strategy where you are trying to build a milk voucher, it will take you at least 3 or 4 banners before you kind of see the value of this coming out. So you could also think of this as kind of needing a bit more investment up front as well. But definitely in the long term, as you can see from the returns here, it's definitely going to be more valuable to go for some of the higher amounts to get those extra milk vouchers, rather than kind of spending those extra tickets to build up pity beforehand.